What's up, guys? Iceman here. So first off, I'd like to thank my supporters, okay? Like the last couple days, some of you motherfuckers have bought me coffees. A few of you gave me donations on PayPal, little tippy jar in the description below. And I even gained a new patron. So damn. New patron is, the fuck? Oh shit. Oh shit. I didn't add him. Okay. I'll add you next video, man. Got a new patron. May the Creator bless you and keep you. And to all of my patrons, may your finances be blessed. And may you prosper. And may your offspring be a number like the stars in the sky. Yeah, so thank you to my supporters. Links in the description below. But here's the thing, dog. And, I mean, shit, I don't know if all you guys are going to be in agreement with this shit. Which is why I'm curious what you have to say in the comments below, alright? But basically, D2R is coming out soon, right? September 23rd. And as far as I know, they're not going to have a ladder reset right away. So rather than that, they're just going to have an active game realms, and they're going to do a ladder reset potentially within the first couple months, I think is what it is. Because we all like ladder resets, right? Ladder reset about right now on botnet, I think it's every 6 months, one time every 6 months, where you can join the ladder realms, and it's a whole fresh start to the ladders and the realms, and you have to make new characters, and you don't get anything from before, so it's a fresh new start for everyone. And what I find appealing about that is there just ain't much like walking around in the den of evil with nothing but a club in hand and whacking little devilkins over the head with a club, basically, right? Because you never know what you're going to get. And you just have a whole world in front of you of potential and items, and many things that you find are new and usable. So unlike way far later into the ladder, you're just constantly identifying and finding shit, and rarely ever do you find something you could use. But of course, when you do, it's very rewarding. But on the other side of the spectrum, I just find it enjoyable when you can start afresh, where the world is your oyster. So here's kind of what I'm proposing, okay? I'm curious what you guys think about it. Here's just my FOH Paladin. He's on Project Diablo 2, a modded version of Diablo 2 that did a lot of balances and stuff, because this is just one example of it. Fist of the Heavens is now usable for endgame, unlike how it is in Diablo 2 LOD Classic, where it's a pretty shitty skill. And it's really not endgame viable at all. So here it is. Does 1500 holy bolt damage with not many skills invested, and well, maxed out, but not many skills on gear, and 3400 lightning damage. But see, this is just one example of balancing, all right? Because this is a build that you can never have in D2 LOD Classic. But here's kind of what Iceboy wants to propose. And I've heard this before, all right, and I think it's a good idea. I think even Dobrunsky touched on it. So, there's a slew of toads who are OG Diablo 2 players, right? Who don't want anything changed. And I can kind of understand that mentality. They don't want balances done. And I mean, it pretty much goes without saying, if we want a remastered version of Diablo 2, we want it just how Diablo 2 was, right? Of course, it's kind of far from that right now visually when it comes to the character models, but beside that, there has been some visual improvements, I would say, outside of the character models. But so I think what would be perhaps a good way to go. I mean, we're going to get I think there's going to be quite an influx of Diablo 2 players, newcomers, and of course folks who just quit playing. I mean, there are probably millions of people out there who played Diablo 2 upon release and for the first couple of years, especially after Lord of Destruction, the first and only expansion. So here's what Iceboy's proposing. God, get to the fucking point. What if there was an option every 6 months for ladder reset where you could select either classic ladder reset or resurrected ladder reset. You know, so there were 2 ongoing ladders at once, simultaneously. Probably is how they should do it. Of course, they could be staggered, where halfway through the other one starts, just in case you get bored, you know, 6 months in. Although I think they are going to reset the ladders earlier than 6 months, and maybe it's every 3 months. I think they have reevaluated that some, to my memory. I don't know if anything's set in stone yet, though, when it comes to that, but check it out. On the classic ladder reset, you could have all the shit how it is. On D2 LOD Classic, where there's no skill balance is done. No item balance is done, no item revisions, nothing of that sort. It's just how Classic is, you know, so there's some OP builds, there's a lot of shit that's quite useless, but on the other hand, the things that are really good are just really exciting, and everyone knows them by name and on many occasions by stats. You know, we're just Hoto's best in slot, Enigma's super GG, Grief is overpowered as fuck, you know, things like that. And when it comes to all the skills and balances, there just aren't any. You know, it's just like how it was in LOD Classic. So the Hammerdine kind of rules them all. Light Sork is GG. Death Century just pops corpses like crazy and obliterates the screen along with Corpse Explosion. There's not much of a summon Necro outside of the Corpse Explosion build, but your minions are kind of bitches, but they're meat shields, and you're primarily doing the damage through Corpse Explosion, as far as I understand it. Beyond that, there's not much of a Necro summoner outside of Corpse Explosion that's viable endgame, to my understanding. And the same applies for summoner droids, all right? I don't think there's even a viable summoner droid at all. In fact, I'm pretty damn sure of it, that there is not a viable summoner droid for Hell difficulty multiplayer games in LOD Classic. So that's kind of what we get to look forward to in Diablo 2 Resurrected. We get to look forward to the droid being kind of stuck in for endgame builds. Maybe, what are they? The Wind droid is pretty much the do-all one. Not do-all one, but it's just it's a fast clear and can do most of the content. And in addition to that, there are a few shape-shifting builds that can do okay. You know, but what do you guys think about that? Have an LD Classic option, and then a for ladder reset, and then a D2R ladder reset. Because here's what I would then maybe propose for the D2R ladder reset. For one, perhaps most importantly, there probably would be a lot of skill revisions, all right? Like, this is just one character, obviously. But even with this one character, there are a lot of examples of what has been revised for the Paladin. I mean, shit. You can have a Vengeance build now. You know, Vengeance was garbage in LOD Classic, and it still is. But now, with all these synergies and shit, and how it scales per level, you can actually have an endgame viable Vengeance Paladin, and you still can have a Blessed Hammer Paladin. Alright, just like the old days, so don't worry about that. Zeal is actually good. Basically, your physical skills are really good because there's splash damage now, okay? Splash damage on weapons. See that? Melee attacks deal splash damage. So, when you're a barbarian, you're a frenzy barb, you're not just swatting around one enemy at a time, so you're basically in a... Say that you enter an area with a ton of fallen around you, right? You're the Frenzy Barbarian, and you have super GG gear. You still, with these low HP enemies, you gotta swat every single one of them. And then all of a sudden, a Lightning Javazan, who only has like 20 hours invested in their character, who doesn't have endgame gear, she comes running up, she throws one javelin, and it kills the whole crowd. And then you have your Frenzy Barbarian, you're like, what the fuck? Like, I busted my ass to get Grief, to get Breath of the Dying, to get Perfect Areas, to get GG Fortitude, to get Reaper's Toll on my Mercenary. You know, to get all this shit. Get the unique Ogre Gauntlets or whatever, Laying of Hands, more preferably in my opinion. But things like that, you know, gore riders and shit. I mean, High Lord's Amulet, you know, max damage GCs, inventory full of them, you know, super GG, max GG, max damage grand charms, max damage small charms, you know, max damage lifer small charms, you know, GG shit. And still, you gotta swat every single one of the Fallen. And you invested so much time and effort into this character. And so it's kind of like, what the fuck? And then there's Sorceress, who just got to Hell mode, has shitty gear, wearing lore helmet, wearing stealth armor, you know, wearing whatever staff, you know, just junk. Okay, so I'm gonna do a slam fest in a minute. But yeah, another example. A very cheap character comes running up then, and it makes you feel like shit. Because she casts a couple Frozen, or not Frozen, a couple Blizzards, because Frozen I think is kind of shitty compared to Blizzard and LOD Classic. So you're just stuck with using those fucking skills. You get the Sorcerers come on in, and she casts Blizzard, and it wipes out the whole crowd in 2 clicks. You know, there's those, so my point is, there might be benefit in having some melee splash damage, because then, you know, it's just really convenient. Because you can hit a couple Fallens and they'll all die within a certain radius if you're doing adequate damage. And it's not overpowered in PD2, splash damage, because it's not all of your enhanced damage abilities. Your splash damage is actually just your base weapon damage, like something like this. A poor example, but you know, you'd have a pretty high base damage if you were wearing Grief and Breath of the Dying, right? But none of your multipliers apply to it from your skills. Unless if it's like critical strike or shit like that. But beyond that, man, if you pump it up enough, your base damage, of course your skill charms apply to it as well, then you can do adequate damage to kill the enemies around you. So it just really makes the physical build so much more viable. We're talking about now, we can have more viable Fury Druids. We can have more viable Werebear shape-shifting Druids. We can have Zeal Paladins that are pretty damn good. You know, you can have a Zeal Paladin, and he can't keep up with the Javazon still, but he can keep up a little bit more. You know, he can't keep up with the Lightning Sword still, but he can keep up a little bit more. You know, he's not like 1/10 the efficiency like they are in LOD Classic. He's more like 3/10 or 4/10 the efficiency, or something of that sort. All right. So my point is, in the D2R ladder reset, if you select that option and open that whole new realm where you can make new characters, then you could have things like skill balances and splash damage. And like I said, there are many examples, just with the Paladin alone in Project Diablo 2. Like I said, Fist of the Heavens is now a new build. Vengeance is now a new build. Just your basic attacks are more viable. You can go Zeal. And I know there's like a Tesladin in D2 LOD Classic, which is great, but the problem is it's so damn expensive that there's just no comparison to all the other builds until you get that GG gear. You can actually have, you know, a viable Aura Paladin, basically. But there are plenty of other examples in PD2. But beyond that, you know, gear, I mean, here's what they did in PD2. They made some other endgame options. You know, now you're not just stuck with Hodo for all your classic characters, for all just your basic builds, but you can go with something like this that actually enhances Holy Bolt. And that's another thing. Holy Bolt Paladin is a thing now. So these aren't just a bunch of useless skills. You know, there are so many skills now that are usable. So they could make these sort of revisions in the D2R Classic, or D2R Resurrected ladder reset option. All right, and this might be cray-cray, but I think I'd be all for it if they still gave us both options. They could add new content as well. Okay, they could add endgame content where, just like what was influenced, I think, from Path of Exile, where they shit, hell yeah, get some of that gold, dog. Where you can find endgame maps and actually challenge your characters. Because of course in D2 Classic, LOD Classic, as much as we all love it and played the hell out of it, really the endgame stuff is just run and battle. You know, you're just doing the battle runs. Chaos isn't even as good, but you're running for experience, so you're running the battle runs. And that's it. You're just doing that from 70 for the rest of time. You know, maybe you have a few of the niche characters that can actually do the Ubers, and in which case you could mess around there for endgame a little bit. But it's still, for leveling, it's just most effective just to do battle runs. So just those basic battle runs, which are cool and fun, but that's all it is, you know. So, in this D2R resurrected ladder reset option, they could add endgame maps that offer, you know, just swarms of high-level monsters that are, you know, basically equivalent to the level of monsters that you get in doing battle runs. Only you have wide open areas of these, so you can actually put your characters to the test. And perhaps these maps can roll better stats. I don't know. Maybe that wouldn't even be the case. Maybe they just have the 85 level monsters like the Pit or like Battle Runs or a few other places in LOD Classic. But Ancient Tunnels, I think, and several others. But this might be a viable option, you know, to add longevity to the playing of Diablo 2 Resurrected. And one thing that might be interesting is this would open up a lot of options, where they could add a lot of new quality of life changes, maybe do something like a larger inventory, charm-only inventory section, you know, stackable runes, stackable gems, you know, all this stuff that some might have a problem with being added to Diablo 2 Resurrected, which is why you'd have the classic ladder reset option as well, for those who just want to keep it basic. And it would be fun, I think, to go back to that, just like how it is now. Because I've been playing PD2 for a long time, this modded version. Before this, I was playing Path of Diablo, another modded version. So after playing it for a couple years, it actually does sound kind of appealing to go back to the old days now with Resurrected and just have the basic ladder reset with all the basic skills and gear and overpowered shit and no endgame maps, nothing, but still, you know, some overpowered skills and stuff that is fun to use and just go back to. So if D2R would implement these two options, we could have it all in one game, where you can go back to the old way with overpowered shit. And then you could go, you know, the modern way as well with potential enhancements. And another potential enhancement would be they could add a new act. And shit, they could maybe add another act. They could maybe make a new expansion, because there's only been one expansion for Diablo 2. And shit, if it's really popular, they could make more expansions for Diablo 2 and just see where shit goes. And if it gets too bad, or, you know, people don't like it, we could just go back and be playing the classic ladder, and then they could maybe reevaluate things and start, you know, like they do with World of Warcraft and stuff. They'll reevaluate things, they'll add things, they'll take away things, they'll just try to make it more appealing to the general fan bases. But let me know what you guys think about that in the comments below. Would you be for this option to have two different ladders simultaneously, one classic and one resurrected? Comment below your thoughts on these matters, and if so, what changes would you like to see in the D2R resurrected ladder reset? So like the damn video if you haven't yet, become a patron if you want. More videos to come. Peace be with you.